Marcus Webb got fired on a Tuesday morning in front of his entire class. The student he protected that day disappeared from the school 2 weeks later. 3 years passed. Then the door opened. Before we go any further, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Now, let's begin. The classroom smelled like dry erase markers and old carpet. 26 seventh graders sat in rows, backpacks still on, half of them barely awake. Marcus Webb stood at the front board writing the day's objective in clean block letters. He had taught English at Crestwood Middle School for 11 years. 11 years of lesson plans, parent calls, and staying late to grade papers under a flickering hallway light. He knew every student's name before the first week ended. He knew which ones needed silence and which ones needed noise. He knew the ones carrying weight no 12-year-old should carry. Darius Cole was one of those, quiet kid. Second row, third seat. He wore the same gray hoodie 4 days out of 5 and kept his eyes low when adults raised their voices. Marcus had noticed him early, not because he caused trouble but because he worked too hard not to. The kind of careful that came from somewhere painful. That morning, the principal walked in without knocking. Gerald Prout moved through rooms like he owned them, which in his mind he did. He was the kind of administrator who mistook authority for intelligence. He wore his lanyard like a badge of rank and spoke to teachers the way people spoke to appliances, functional until inconvenient. He stopped at Darius's desk. The boy had fallen asleep. His head rested on folded arms, cheek pressed against his notebook. The class went still. Marcus stepped forward before Prout opened his mouth. "He was here at 6 this morning," Marcus said, voice even. "Waiting outside my door. He doesn't have heat at home right now." Prout barely glanced at him. He tapped the desk twice with 2 fingers. "Up, this isn't a hotel." Darius startled awake, eyes wide with that specific fear of a child who has been scolded in public before. His chair scraped back. The class watched. Marcus stepped closer. "Gerald, not here." Prout turned slowly. His expression carried the particular coldness of a man unaccustomed to being addressed by his first name. "Excuse me, he's a child," Marcus said. "Whatever you need to say, you say it to me." Room was absolutely silent. 26 kids held their breath. Prout studied Marcus for a long moment, jaw tight. Then he smiled, the kind that meant nothing good. "My office," he said. After third period, he left. The door clicked shut behind him. Marcus turned back to the board. His hand was steady. His jaw was not. The meeting lasted 11 minutes. Prout sat behind his desk with a folder already open. A woman from HR sat beside him with a pen she never used. The charge was insubordination. The decision, Prout said, had already been made. Marcus sat straight. He did not beg. He asked one question. "Who's going to tell Darius?" Prout blinked. "That's not your concern anymore." Marcus stood, buttoned his jacket, and left the folder unsigned on the desk. In the hallway, a custodian mopping near the water fountain looked up and gave him a slow nod. Marcus nodded back. He cleaned out his classroom that afternoon while the kids were at lunch. He left his dictionary on the shelf. He left the jar of pens on the windowsill. He took only a photograph from his desk drawer. Him and his mother at his college graduation, her hands on both his cheeks, her eyes full of something too large for that small frame. He walked out through the side door. The sky was low and gray, the kind that couldn't decide between rain and just making everything feel heavier. He sat in his car for a while without starting it. Then he drove home. 2 weeks later, Darius Cole stopped coming to school. His file was transferred to a district program across town. No one explained why. The new teacher rearranged the desks. The gray hoodie became a detail only a few people remembered. Prout hired a younger teacher, fresh out of certification. Compliant. Eager. The kind who laughed at his jokes in staff meetings. The school moved on the way schools do, by filling the space and forgetting the shape. 3 years passed. Marcus spent the first few months substitute teaching in neighboring districts. Then he picked up tutoring, word of mouth at first, then steady enough that he rented a small space above a print shop on Delmore Avenue. 2 rooms, a whiteboard, 6 plastic chairs. He called it nothing officially. The kids called it Mr. Webb's. Word spread the way it does in communities that look out for their own. Parents sent their children. Teachers quietly referred the ones they worried about. He charged what families could afford and waived the fee when they couldn't. He worked Tuesday through Saturday mornings and evenings. He kept a jar of pens on the windowsill. He did not think about Crestwood often, but when he did, it was always Darius he thought about. Whether the boy had found someone to stand between him and the world when it leaned too hard the morning the door opened, Marcus was writing a grammar exercise on the board. He heard the bell above the entrance chime. He assumed it was a parent. He kept writing. Mr. Webb. Voice was low, measured, adult in a way that made him pause before he turned. Darius Cole stood in the doorway, taller now, shoulders broader, jaw sharper. He wore a dark jacket and held a leather folder under one arm. His eyes carried the same quiet they always had, but steadier now. Like the weight was still there, but no longer in charge. Marcus set down his marker for a moment. Neither of them spoke. Then Darius said, "I've been looking for you for about 8 months." Marcus exhaled slowly. He pulled out a chair. "Sit down." Darius talked for a long time. After the transfer, he had bounced between programs. His mother had moved them twice, once for work, once for survival. He had struggled in school the way kids struggle when the ground keeps shifting beneath them. But a counselor in his sophomore year had sat with him long enough to hear what he needed. He had graduated. He had gotten a partial scholarship to a state university. He had studied education. He was 22 now. He had just accepted a position as a student advocate with the city's district oversight board, a new department charged with reviewing disciplinary records, teacher terminations, and administrative conduct across 12 schools. He placed the leather folder on the table between them. Inside was a printed case file. Marcus's termination was on the 3rd page, flagged during a routine audit of Crestwood's disciplinary history. Pruitt's record, it turned out, contained 17 similar complaints over 9 years, 4 teacher removals, 11 student grievances. A pattern documented clearly and quietly by people who had filed reports that went nowhere, until now. "Board is recommending his removal," Darius said. "The review is complete. They asked me to notify impacted parties personally." Marcus looked at the file, his name in black ink on institutional paper, 11 years reduced to a paragraph. He closed the folder and pushed it gently back. "Long have you been carrying this?" he asked. Darius was quiet for a moment. "Since the day you told him not to embarrass me in front of my class." Marcus nodded slowly. Outside, a delivery truck rumbled past. A child on the sidewalk laughed at something. The room held its light the way small rooms do in the late morning, warm and unhurried. The following week, Gerald Pruitt was called before the district board. He arrived confident. He left without his lanyard. The decision was unanimous. Immediate administrative leave pending full review. 3 of his former teachers submitted written statements. 2 parents testified. The HR woman who had sat silently in that 11-minute meeting submitted her own account of what she had witnessed over 4 years and never reported. She apologized at the end of her statement. The board accepted it. Pruitt appealed. The appeal was denied. His replacement was a woman named Dr. Sandra Acaffer, 20 years in education, known for the kind of calm that made students feel like the room was built for them. Marcus heard about it through a former colleague who called him on a Thursday evening. He listened, thanked her, and made himself a cup of coffee. He stood by his kitchen window for a while, watching the street below. Someone's dog was barking at a leaf. A couple walked slowly with a stroller, leaning into each other. He thought about Darius sitting across from him in that small room, the leather folder, the steadiness in his eyes. He thought about a Tuesday morning 3 years ago. A child startled awake, a class holding its breath. He thought about what it cost to stand still and what it produced the following Tuesday. Darius came back, not with paperwork this time. He sat in one of the plastic chairs and watched Marcus run a session with 3 8th graders working through essay structure. He didn't interrupt. He just watched the way students do when they're learning something they didn't know they needed. Afterward, when the kids had gone, Darius asked if Marcus had ever considered expanding. Marcus looked around the 2 rooms, the whiteboard, the 6 chairs, the jar of pens. "Every day," he said. Darius opened a different folder. Inside was a grant proposal already drafted, submitted on Marcus's behalf to a city education fund that supported independent learning centers in underserved neighborhoods. The review committee had approved it 3 days ago. Marcus stared at the number on the approval letter. "You did this," he said. Darius shrugged once. "You stood up when I couldn't, felt like the least I could do." 6 months later, the space above the print shop expanded into the floor below it. New desks, a small library, a reading corner for younger kids with a rug that was too bright and too soft and exactly right. The jar of pens moved to the new windowsill. On the wall near the entrance, someone had framed a single quote, handwritten on plain white cardstock. Asterisk, some people protect you before you know you need it. Remember their names. Asterisk, no signature. No explanation needed. Marcus Webb stood in the doorway on the morning of the opening, watching students file in. A mother stopped beside him and said, "My son talks about this place like it saved him." Marcus smiled quietly. He saved it right back. Somewhere across town, in a school that finally felt like a school, a child sat in a warm classroom without fear of being embarrassed for being tired. A teacher stood at the front board. The day's objective was written in clean block letters. The door was open.